let's kick off. So when I'm looking at the suburb, a suburb, one of the little tricky tools I use is actually a free tool that's online. It's called dsrdata.com.au. DSR stands for Demand Supply Ratio. And some of you may have heard of it. It's an excellent tool to look at the relationship between housing supply and housing demand. And obviously, further to the green, it means demand exceeds supply. And what you'd expect to see when you've got a unit or a property where demand exceeds supply is you'd expect to see some short to medium term capital growth. So I like Marrickville. I bought there recently. It's a great suburb. Obviously, you can see that demand exceeds supply. So it's in a sense, it's favourable from that perspective. Prices are going up. The median price is under 1.4 million. The yield is 2.84. Now, for a house, that's pretty good in Sydney. And the vacancy rate is about half the average for Sydney at 1.6%. So Marrickville is a very compelling suburb for houses. Now, you don't really get good yield in Sydney anywhere, but that's fairly good for houses. One of the compelling things about Marrickville is it's on the Sydney Metro line as well. So there's a lot of transport infrastructure, but as we can see from the DSR, there's not all that much excess supply of housing. So one of the biggest infrastructure projects in Australia is the Sydney Metro line, and investing anywhere along there is a good idea. I love the data in Marrickville. Mossman, I mentioned Mossman before, so now we're looking at units. Mossman has, very good unit fundamentals, very high demand permanently. It's a very reliable suburb. So the median price is under, 1,050,000. You get a yield of 3%. You get a yield of 3% in Mossman, and the vacancy rate is 2.2%. You also have a situation where the demand exceeds supply in that suburb. So one of the reasons Mossman's so attractive is that you've got that 3 times the median price of a house versus a unit. So you've, in a sense, got your downside covered. But it's also one of those premium areas that it is quite resilient during the cycles. So it has lower amplitude when times are good and when times are bad. So it's a very, very reliable investment suburb. Leichhardt, love Leichhardt. So again, we have a suburb where the demand exceeds supply. It's 1.4 million. The blocks are small in Leichhardt, but Leichhardt's been a bit underloved the last couple of the last decade or so, as it used to be a very fashionable area to go out. It's not so much, but it's coming back. It's got great numbers. The yield is pretty good. The vacancy rate at 2% is well below the vacancy rate for Sydney. So I like Leichhardt as well. And up until recently, it was pretty hot. I'll give you a bonus area that I like, and it's largely based on 2 factors. So one is the demand, significantly outstrips supply. So you can see in the DSR chart there on the left, the Wiley Park has got very good demand supply profiles. It's also quite affordable. So we're talking about houses, not units, of course, at a median price of 795,000 and a yield of 3.1%. It's pretty good. Now the vacancy rate looks pretty high there, or it's about the average for Sydney, but it's a bit of a bonus pick. It's a bit speculative. Wiley Park is not a place to invest if we go into a period of economic volatility. It's going to be volatile. But here's the thing that makes Wiley Park compelling. So by 2024, the Sydney Metro line and station upgrades will be completed. And Wiley Park will go from being a suburb that has a train every 15 minutes to a train every 4 minutes. And they're going to redevelop all the infrastructure around the station. So if you can it's an affordable way to get right next to a station, and you can get large blocks there. It's just a bonus. One other area, if you're looking at units that aren't in Vaucluse or Mossman, is I like the St George area a lot. I think that's a great area there. But the St George area is like the most underloved part of Sydney. It's great in terms of transport. Cogra is going to become one of the hospital hubs of Sydney. So there's great employment, great transport. The ratio of houses to units in terms of price, it's more like double rather than triple. So you're not going to get that extreme price growth that you might get elsewhere. But it's a very reliable place to park some money. So there's no problems. You know, Carlton, Cogra, Rockdale, excellent areas there. Highly recommended.